Good evening, folks. I'm your host, Jeff McNeil, and on tonight's episode, we have the rack stacker, Steve Emly. And on this episode, we are going to talk and discuss late season attractions. So, welcome to the show, Steve.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me on again, Jeff. I appreciate it.
So, Steve, again, thanks for coming on the show. I know we had connection problems there the last time we did this, and there's some hurdles along the way there. Hopefully, fingers crossed, tonight we don't have any connection problems, hence the reason why we're a little late there. So let's jump right into this, Steve, and hope there's no glitches here tonight on this. If not, I'll be reaching out to my provider for service to have the line checked again. So, as our guests know, and our folks know, we have Steve Emly, the owner of Rack Stacker Products and Homegrown Hunter TV. On this episode, again, we discussed the late season attractions. So, Steve, let's just jump right into it. What are some of the late season deer food sources, I guess?
Well, this time of year, deer are changing their summer habitat, and they're actually moving from food sources that are high protein that are typically growing in agricultural fields. There's also a lot of other natural foods that they'd be feeding on: wild raspberry, brambles, briar, basswood, a bunch of those natural foods you'll see in the bush that you'll naturally see. However, right now what's happening, guys are out there throwing out some attractants, dropping in front of their trail cameras, but you're going to find a transition from them going to a high protein annual crop such as soybean, which grows very quickly. But now that the leaves have fallen off, and even in some cases the farmers are taking off the beans. So what will happen is the deer will start jumping from a soybean field into a superbuck plot. If you've got a food plot in, superbuck is a high attractive this time of year in the early bow season. Or they'll be jumping into a sistering alfalfa field, but you might see an agricultural field like a farmer's crop. So you want to be staying near the greens when you're doing an early archery season. Of course, there's natural foods like apples and pears that are falling right now. Acorns are still green, so they're not going to be eating the acorns right now. They're going to be eating into that lush, high protein, good nutritional value. So look at the greens and look at the natural forage that's going to be dropping apples and pears.
Gotcha. But it's one of those things there where the late season, I guess, deer food sources, some people prefer the late season over the early season, obviously, because they find it gives them more time to hunt, I guess, and deer are foraging, I guess, for more. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong on that term or point of view, obviously, but a lot of guys like it because they're in the rut, and it seems like deer are a little easier to harvest back then.
Yeah, like when the deer goes to a hard antler, they end up getting a lot more testosterone in their system, so they start spreading out. So those guys that are seeing the bucks over a mineral site throughout the summer months, you often find they take off for a little while. This is actually called dispersal. It's known through the quality deer management studies that deer will travel 7 to 11 kilometers in order to disperse and find out, different territories, what kind of bucks are out there. So if you've got a trail camera set up on attractants or bait sites or apple stands or whichever you've got used for you, you're going to find different bucks start to spread out at this point. Now, In the early season, what I found, there's been a couple of local folks here that are in my hometown that have harvested some fantastic deer. But it's because those deer are still on their home ground, so they've had them over the mineral sites, or they've caught them on a travel quarter, or going from bed, still on their summer patterns. But I, for one, and probably the majority of the later season guys, like to get into November when those bucks are really dogging does. They're out to do their job, which is obviously breeding the does. But you're going to want to focus on holding those on your property. And that's where food sources like attractants like the rack stacker deer feed or protein blocks are going to be something that holds those deer before the rut happens. And that's what's really starting to pique interest right now. Guys are picking it up at the local dealers.
Oh, for sure. It's all a help with a lot of that. I know I have a couple of videos here, Steve, and I'm just wondering where you'd like me to bring up some of the videos throughout the segment here. So just let me chime in at any time
There's the
there.
one where I'm in front of the tractor. If you want to show the one that's in front of the tractor, it gives a good explanation of some of the late season stuff that guys could be looking forward to over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, bear with me. That would be perfect. Okay, that one's coming up here right now, so you should see it here on the screen. And for our viewers, tune into this this one here.
Now that you got the spring and the summer taken care of, that mineral will hold those deer on your property until the following summer. You can get a food plot in what's behind me here, or if you may not have the opportunity to put a food plot in or the equipment, you can lean on what's called the protein block. Protein block is actually very similar to our original deer feed. It's got minerals in it, and it's pressed into a 25-pound block. It's fantastic for putting in front of your trail cameras to lasting up to 6 to 8 weeks, especially if you got bears or raccoons in the area, because they have a tendency to take off with your feed. This way, because it's so heavy, you'll leave it alone, and your deer continuously come into your trail cameras. Our rack stacker deer feed is a balanced feed specifically for feeding your whitetail herd throughout the winter months. You're going to be seeing this bag across all independent and corporate retail outlets across Canada, so keep an eye out for it. Absolutely nothing's changed to the formulation. It's the same formula we started with back in 2007. A couple of tips on using the rack stacker deer feed. The top end of the bag, you're going to find a tag. That's going to tell you whether or not it's the original formulation, which has rich molasses mixed with grains, perfect for winter feeding. Or you're going to find a dry mixture called auto feeder. This is one that you would use in your auto, so that the auto feeder spreads the evenly and the molasses doesn't get stuck. Another thing you want to be able to do is go out into the field, small pile within 100 yards of your tree stand. This is a real simple thing to do to get them started at coming to your location and getting comfortable with your location. It also helps with dispersing the smell in the early parts of the year. Then, as you get into the season, you can also get closer and closer to your stand, so you know the deer are going to funnel right to you. Now, I do want to make you aware of something called ruminitis. There's lots of guys out there that are using straight corn that they're buying from their feed mill, but they got to also understand that the corn that's in the field is high moisture. White-tailed deer, when we get into the winter months, everything freezes up, creeks, the lakes where they normally get lots of moisture, and then you feed them corn like that in the wintertime, it doesn't get the moisture it needs to break down in the stomach. It's referred to as ruminitis, and this ruminitis is rapid fermentation in the stomach, and it can kill them. The difference between the corn in the field from your farmer and the corn you buy from your mill, now don't get me wrong, folks, I have my own mill. I only know this because I've been trained on it. That's a 14% moisture content, and this could be as high as 40%. So be aware of that when you're feeding your deer in the wintertime. Consider rack stacker deer feed. It's the top premium feed on the market today. You'll see a little later in the show where I use a bale of hay to cover the feed. This does two things for me. One, it keeps all the other rodents out. It keeps the blue jays and the blackbirds and the crows out of my feed site. it also helps cover up my scent. I use hay to lay down in the bottom of a blind and around me to not only give me warmth, but it also keeps the scent down in the blind while I'm hunting deer close to the bait site. If you plan on using the same technique this coming fall, make sure that there's no clover in your hay that you're using, because any fawns that are not exposed to the clover won't be able to digest it properly, because clover has a certain microorganism in it that the fawns can't break down. Keep that in mind, and good luck this fall.
You there, Steve?
Still here. I don't know if that was glitchy on my end, but was it clear on yours?
It was crystal clear on mine, so I'm hoping the viewers it was
Okay,
crystal
I'm
clear
glad
on as well.
Yeah, I know we were having some digital issues. I think it's more because it's on my end. So I hope everybody got to see that okay.
Me too. So, folks, I hope that gives a little insight there with the video that we brought up there. There's 2 more videos that I bring up throughout the show as well. And whatnot. But moving along there, Steve, I know our viewership is growing up and down here. What natural food sources attract deer?
This time of year, you're going to obviously find the apple trees as a natural food. You want to stay close.
You there, Steve, or do we lose you? You there, Steve? Bear with us one sec, folks. We're just waiting for Steve to connect there. We lost you for a sec, Steve. Your audio went a little glitchy on us.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I don't know. I apologize, folks. So we already know that the digital issue is on my end. I can already see the screen flickering and stuff, so it's obviously on my end. We had a heavy rainstorm come through with hail and stuff this afternoon, so I'm wondering if that screwed it up just like last time.
It's quite possible, Steve. Steve, we were talking there about the natural food source attractants, and you mentioned deer apples, obviously, apple trees, and we got cut off there.
Yeah, so if you're hunting a farm that's got any type of wild apple trees, it's probably the place that you want to focus. But you understand, too, that these are natural foragers. They're going to start feeding on the trees as they start to mature. When they mature, the nutritional value goes into the plant. But if you've got anything out there that's going to attract those deer, such as fruit plots, they're going to start moving into that part of eating a natural food source because they're going to get more nutritional value because those late season fruit plots are going to have a lot more nutrition in them. It's also going to help retain moisture as well.
I can hear you loud and clear there.
So as far as natural food sources, I find that my deer locally are feeding off of wild raspberry and some brambles and briars along our fence lines that are low cover. So anything that is low to the ground below 6 feet is really good to keep an eye on. You can see natural routes that's actually being chewed throughout the fall. And then once we get into the later part of October, you'll start to hear a lot of acorns falling from the trees, and that's going to be a natural food source that everybody always tries to key in on. Is the acorns hit the ground?
Perfect. Now I know a lot of the feeds that you do. Obviously, some consist of the acorns as well in the mixtures that you do, right, Steve?
Not necessarily the acorns. We have a tracking code ice that vanilla flavoring, and what we've done is we've roasted all the ingredients and we've raised the protein level from 14 up to 34%. So it's the highest protein out there for whitetail deer. And as these bucks start running around, you get those little energy drinks you find at the local gas station for a couple of bucks. That's kind of where the idea came from. Because I mean, if you're on the run and you're constantly doing things, you need a Red Bull or a Monster drink, Well, those bucks are constantly dogging deer or fighting off their girlfriends or sparring with other deer. So they're burning up their body fat and their muscle mass. So in order to compensate for that, we actually come up with two different formulas. One fixation, which has been one of my favorite for over 10 years. Fixation is an apple flavored 32% protein. Fantastic. But it's pretty much an energy shot for the small that from your stand while you're hunting. You're going to get a lot more activity there because once they get a mouthful of that, they can't get enough of it. It's like ice cream to a child. You get them a bowl, but they want more. Well, when you go to hunt and you take a small bag of extra fixation with you, put it around the acorn, put it around the apple trees. It's just one more added value of your arsenal in order to fill your tag. So I find the only time I ever use fix and entice is only when I hunt. I normally don't use it any other time because it's that one power that's going to draw those deer in close.
Gotcha. Now, we've got a couple of viewer comments here, I see, so I'm going to bring them up here, Steve. Aaron Muse, which feeds are the best in the spring and summer months on feedlots? Which ones are typically ones to avoid?
I typically stop feeding my deer in April because they're starting to go first as natural food starting to grow in. But when the spring starts to thaw and we still got some ice and snow in the lakes and stuff, I normally get my mineral sources in. So I start putting my blaze and my stack in. If you're looking to increase the health of the buck, we have a formulation called Glory, which is higher in phosphorus and calcium. That's what you're going to put in the springtime, not necessarily a food source, because you're going to go off that feed and start feeding on natural forages that are starting to green up. Because in the springtime, when everything starts to green, the top 1/3 of the plant, so the plant's 3 feet high, the top 1 foot of it's going to hold the most nutrition. However, in order to benefit from their natural forages, they need to be able to form a natural immune system with strength and vitamins, and that's where the blaze and stack really help there because it adds that vitamins and minerals that they don't normally get from their natural food. It also boosts their immune system to beat up any type of sickness and cold. And of course, when you get into the trimester of farming, that's the most important. So in the springtime, I wouldn't suggest using any feed, protein blocks, moose licks, deer licks, any type of mineral source. That's to keep them hold up on your property.
Perfect, because that leads us into our next question from Aaron as well. Which mineral licks are the best for deer to help retain moisture in their body?
I would definitely use Blaze. We've been using Blaze here on my farm since 2008 when we designed that product. And it's actually Canada's favorite one. And we sell far more Blaze than anything else, but Stack is quickly coming behind that more because of the popularity of the coconut vanilla in that mineral as well. It smells fantastic. Use 10 pounds per site. You can actually put 10 pounds per 40 acres. You got 100 acres. I've got 88, and I've got 3 mineral sites on my farm. You're going to get different deer coming at different sources. So I've actually got Blaze and 2 Stack sources on my farm. So Glory tends not to be a very popular product around my farm for some reason. The deer just don't want it. It's high in calcium, and I'm assuming because they're natural foods here, or maybe even the water is providing the minerals in Glory that they want. However, there's tons of guys, central Saskatchewan, guys up in the Renfrew County area, they swear by Glory. So I don't recommend mixing them at all. Set up a site, one for every 40 acres, try 10 pounds of it, and if we start hammering it, we'll keep it the same product every time, don't change it up. Because I've seen mineral sites go cold if you add the wrong product to it. So just keep it as you mark it. So if you do Blaze, keep it Blaze. I would start with Blaze for sure.
And we've got another comment here from a viewer, I believe it's Garth Williams. Do you recommend salt blocks?
Any animal, including humans, needs salt. It doesn't. Every animal, in order to metabolize food, in order to source your body to build antibiotics against any type of foreign objects, they need to be able to have that salt content. Salt's in water, salt's in pretty well anything we eat. you add salt to your steaks. I mean, I know some guys fry it so much because they're lacking it. They end up putting way more salt in French fries than they need to. Well, we are the same way. So when it looks to salt, I don't deter a guy from using salt if you're going to use it. Mind you, I will say that water softener salt is a big, big no. Reason being is you're going to get chlorine in the softener salt. Help with calcifying. I just lost the screen. Can you hear me still?
I can still hear you. Yep. I can see you moving.
Can you still hear me?
We can still hear you, Steve. We can. Yes.
Jeff.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hey, Steve. Yep. We lost Steve for a minute there, folks. Must be a bad connection on Steve's end here. But just bear with us here. Your comments are still welcome. I apologize for the inconvenience with the connection issue on Steve's end, but not sure what exactly is happening there on his end of things. But bear with me, and we will try to get Steve back up here. Yeah, we will be with him in a minute, hopefully. So if any viewers got any questions, shoot them forward, and I will try to answer them. We will go from there, but bear with me 1 second. Well, folks, just bear with us there. I've got Steve messaging me. His connection is completely gone. So, again, this is take 2 of this episode 19, which seems to be flawed with technical connection issues. So, bear with us here shortly. Well, folks, just got a message there from Steve. He's got 1 bar of internet service, and we've lost him there. So my apologies for this. Again, it's out of my control, obviously. I wish it was something that I could fix very easily, but connection issue is something there that I can't take care of on my end here, unfortunately. So with that, we are going to have to pull the plug on episode 19, and we'll leave it as such. I don't want to bore you guys there, because without Steve, I don't have a guest there to interview, obviously. So with that, again, sorry, connection issue on. It seems to be Steve's side of things, because I've done 4 other podcasts up until tonight. Three anyway. This makes 4. No issues. Again, my apologies. With that, viewers, on behalf of Coast to Coast Outdoors, my apologies for the connection issues. So we may reschedule Steve again in the near future to pick up where we left off. Thanks for tuning in, and again, my deepest apologies.